Hello everyone and welcome to Wyrd Stories. This week's guest is Craig and he is going to tell his story about a strange scream he heard while on a bicycle touring trip down the Pacific coast from Portland, Oregon to Southern California. The trip took place back in 1981. It wasn't until years later that he discovered the strange scream he heard sounded similar to the recordings that people claim to be Bigfoot or Sasquatch.
I don't know what campground it was. I'd have to look on a map. But then, all I know is that it got fogged in and we lost those guys. And I don't know where they went. They were supposed to meet us at this campground. It was on the left. I don't remember what it was called. And it was packed with campers. And we were like, no. And then we saw that Fort Ross was on the map, but it didn't have any shower or anything like that. But we were like, well, let's just stay there. So, see, I'm trying to remember. So there was a parking lot. We went in there. It was probably around 7 or something, 6 or 7, 6:30 or 7. And then there weren't any obvious campgrounds. It wasn't like camping places, but it said in the book that there was. So we were looking for the little camp spots. We thought maybe they were down the road. So we went down the driveway and there was a old Victorian house. It was white. It had like a garden or something. It was on the left hand of the street on the way down. And we were all freaked out because it was creepy. And it was still pretty light. But so I went up to the door, and I thought like a ghost was going to answer or something. And then we were like, well, let's get out here. And then we kind of started down the road farther towards the fort, but then decided to turn around, I think. And we were like, well, there's nobody here. There wasn't anybody in the parking lot. There wasn't anybody at the house. There wasn't... I don't think there is even a truck, like for the campground or the maintenance guy or whatever. And we went back up the road and we went to the parking lot and then we looked on the map and there was another campground down the road. So we went down the road. Is that when the sheep got in the way? Or was that the next day? I don't know, but there's sheep all over the place. It was starting to get dark by this time. And we were up on the highway and we saw some campers down in a ravine down at the other campground, but we knew that didn't have a hike and bike section. But we thought, well, they probably have the hot water. And so I yelled at some guys down there and I was like, how much? And they said $14. I was like, we're not going to pay $14. So we turned around and let's go back to Fort Ross. So we went back and then it was getting pretty dark. You could just see what you were doing. So we went into the trees that were on the left and were like Monterey pines or something. It was really thick. And there was a picnic table in there. So we took the bikes back in there and we usually turn on like a flashlight or something to see what we were doing, but we didn't. And we ate whatever it was, I don't know, ramen or something. And then set up the tent. Might have set up the tent before we ate, I don't remember. And the opening of the tent was facing the ocean. And it was parallel to the parking lot. And we were just all creeped out and we're like, well, whatever, we'll be out of here tomorrow. And then, I don't know what time, a car came in the parking lot, heard the car door open, and I heard it slam. And then they took off out of the parking lot. I don't know what time that was. We probably went to bed around, I don't know, 9 or 9:30 or something. And then then probably around, it's hard to say, 12 or something, the scream. And it sounded like, didn't hear anything coming, just a blasting scream. Like I said, it just blasted through the tent, and it started out like a yell, and then there was like harmonics or something, and then like talking or like gibberish while it was screaming, and then at the very end of it kind of sounded like a but it sounded more like a cat with a fur ball coughing up a fur ball, and I thought that was really weird at the end. But it lasted for, I don't know, 5 seconds, maybe shorter. And then I think the chick was all, "What the f*** was that?" And I said, "I don't know," but I reached for the flashlight. Our heads were facing the opening of the tent. And I was reaching for the flashlight, and then I got the vice grip on my wrist. And she said, "Don't." And then it kind of hit me. I thought whatever it was, it sounded like a demon or something. Whatever that sounds like. I didn't know, it was just so bizarre. Because it didn't sound like any animal. So it kind of hit me that this thing, I thought some monster face with fangs was going to come up to the because it was a screen with a zipper, and it was just going to stick its face right there. By the scream, the face I imagined was just this thing with fangs, and like I don't know. So then I thought, well, I got out of the sleeping bag, and I got in the crouch in the back of the tent, and I figured the tent pole in the front had two rounded ends that would go into the eyelets, that there was nylon with an eyelet, a little brass thing, and the one point went in the top, and then it was an eyelet at the bottom kind of holding the pole so it would stay in place. So I figured what I would do is, if it stuck its face, I would jump forward, push up in one motion. It would release the bottom eyelet. That was called eyelet?
Mm-hmm.
And then that would release the bottom one. I could push up, pull the bottom back. The top one would come out of the eyelet. And with one motion, I could just jab it right in the face, like a spear. Even though the tent would collapse, that was the only weapon I had. So I would push up, bottom would come out, pull back, and the top would come out, and then I would just jab it forward right in his face. So I sat in the back of the tent waiting, and there wasn't any sound whatsoever. And the sheep were still making the sheep noises, and it didn't shut them up. And I didn't hear any walking, nothing. And then, I don't know how much longer, like maybe, I don't know, an hour, or it's hard to say, 40 minutes, I got tired, and I didn't hear any noises. She fell asleep, so I crawled back in my sleeping bag, and then I was in there for maybe in the bag for, could have been half an hour, 20 minutes, still awake. I was just like over it. And then, it screamed the exact same scream, but it sounded like it was down past the house, probably to the fort. And then I figured, well, it's leaving and it's going that direction, so then, I fell asleep, and then the next morning I walked around, but I was looking for tracks. And it was really tight, small trunks, like little Monterey pines or whatever they were. And I kept looking up at the branches, thinking whatever it was maybe flew through the branches because I didn't hear it walking. And I couldn't find any prints or anything because it was pine needle, real mushy pine needles. And then we just packed up and left, and that was it.
So, going back to the beginning, when you guys were riding down the coast, where do you think you started getting the creepy feeling before you hit Fort Ross?
Just actually the beginning of that day, I think. I don't remember. I just remember the whole day was weird. There was something wrong. And when we saw that first campground, I saw a bunch of people there and they seemed to be okay, but it just seemed like, especially around that area, it got worse. And I mean, we didn't want to stay there because it was so bad. And that's why we went down to the other campground, but that campground had a bad vibe too. Like, just the whole area had a bad feeling. Everything. And we'd been down the whole coast from Oregon and had never got that feeling.
When you rode your bikes in to the campground, was the road paved? Yeah,
it was Highway 1. It was paved, and it was in the upper parking lot. The parking lot was paved, and there was no cars or anything. And then there was, then there was just like grass or whatever, dirt into the trees. Then we went under the trees to the picnic table. And you kind of were hidden back there. But we'd kind of seen the picnic tables the first time before we left to go down the other campground. But then we came back, we figured, well, we'll just go to those picnic tables.
So when you first pulled in, it was still kind of light. And then you're like, it feels creepy. Let's go down to the other one.
No, we were looking for people. We were looking for some place to camp because it just looked like there was picnic tables, and it said in the book that there was campsites or something.
So it didn't have like designated.
No, that's why we went down the road. We were looking for where the campsites were.
I see.
But it was obvious that the book made a mistake or something.
I see.
Because it was just. There wasn't any camping there. I don't think you could camp there. I don't know. Maybe. I don't think so. It didn't look like it. That's why we left. It was creepy and there was nowhere to camp. But we didn't want to pay the $14 at the other place, so we went back because we'd been riding all day and it was getting dark and we didn't want to keep going. I mean, you know that road was all windy.
Yeah, Highway 1. So people always tell you, like, oh, it must have been a mountain lion. What made it sound different from a mountain lion?
Because it had so many different things happening at one time, and it didn't sound like a cat.
But at the end, it sounded like a cat.
Yep. I don't know, but I mean, cats don't talk. I mean, there was kind of like, some sort of gibberish or something. It was doing everything all at once. It was screaming, and I think there was a harmonics or 3 different noises happening at once in the scream, and then there was kind of like some sort of gibberish or talking or yelling while those noises were happening, and then it ended with that kind of fur ball. I mean, I don't know. Maybe somebody's heard some sort of a cougar make that noise, but I just, it was really loud. It just sounded bigger than a cat. It was just so loud. And so it wasn't a bobcat. I've heard bobcats. It wasn't a coyote. I don't think there's any elk around that area. It didn't sound like an elk. It didn't sound like an animal at all. I thought it was a demon. Whatever that, it just sounded wrong. It was just bad. It didn't sound like a normal animal.
So a car that pulled up, like, you didn't see the car, but what size car do you think it was? Or
I don't know. But I mean, okay, so somebody lets somebody out,
mm-hmm.
and then they wait around till midnight or whatever
mm-hmm.
for 3 hours or whenever they pulled in, and then they decide to scream, and then you can't hear them walking or anything. And then they go farther down by the fort and scream again. And there's no way some human down by that fort could have yelled that loud, making that kind of weird noise. That's not going to happen. You can say, oh, they were carrying a recording. But how come, if they pulled up in a car, why wouldn't you hear a car come back and pick them up? I mean, there was nobody there. There's nothing around back then.
Did it sound too big to be a person?
Yeah. There's no way some person could have yelled like that down by the fort and it traveled that far at that volume.
And the sheep.
There's no way somebody could have made that noise.
And the sheep, they just kept...
They didn't do anything.
Bah, bah. Could you hear the ocean from where you were?
No.
It's too far.
It was dead quiet because of the fog. It was that fog quiet.
Oh.
And that part, there's a high cliff. I don't know what it was. I didn't see it.
So, when you were in the tent, you had the opening in the front, and it was looking towards the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't have it, like, it was just the screen. You didn't
Mm-hmm.
have it zipped, like the door zipped up.
The door zipped down.
The door
And it was
zipped
screened. It zipped down the middle.
So, if that thing had come around, you would have totally seen it.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I thought I was gonna see some monster with fangs or something, and I was just gonna stab it in the face.
God. How? Wait.
The tent was only 3 feet high. It was a tiny little tent made for bicycling.
So when you were sitting
Or
in there waiting for it to come
light
around,
backpacking.
you actually had your hands like
No, I was
prepared?
gonna jump. Yeah, kind of prepared, but I was in a crouch ready to lunge and grab it.
and grab the tent pole.
And I sat like that for an hour or something or more. I don't know. But you couldn't hear anything. There was no twig snapping. You couldn't really hear the sheep walking around, but you could hear them. And I don't know where I have to look on a calendar if there was enough moon to kind of illuminate the fog, but it seemed like there was some sort of ambient light so that I could see the opening of the tent.
How many days?
But there was no street parking lot lights or anything.
How many days had you been riding your bicycles down from Oregon at that point?
Probably. I think we got to Portland. I don't know, the beginning of June, the middle of June, and that was, by the time we were there, it was like July 3rd or 2nd or something like that.
Do you remember if it was a weekday or a weekend?
I think I don't know. I'd have to look on a calendar and see when July 4th was that year. I think it took 2 weeks to get through Oregon.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me.